Sir, please don't drink it. Just walk away. The words were barely audible. Marissa Clark stood straight, shoulders tight, tray balanced expertly in one hand as she slipped a small, folded piece of paper into the man's palm. Her eyes, deep brown and burning with urgency, met his for only a second. That was all she dared. Victor Hale, one of the most recognizable philanthropists in America, froze. The chandeliers glittering above him blurred for a moment into a haze of gold. His gaze remained on the woman, even as she stepped back, lowered her head, and disappeared into the swirl of gowns and tuxedos. He opened the note. Don't drink. Leave now. They know you found out. Victor's pulse tightened. It wasn't panic, he rarely panicked, but something colder, sharper, awareness. The kind that had once helped him make $1 billion before turning 40. The kind that now told him he was standing in the center of a danger he could not yet name. But this moment, this warning had begun earlier than he knew. Only minutes before, Marissa Clark had been gliding through the staff corridor, balancing a tray of champagne flutes, heading toward the ballroom. The air back there was different, colder, quieter, where real conversations happened without witnesses. She never meant to pause. She never meant to hear anything. But she did. Two men in suits, voices low but urgent, stood near the cracked open door to the VIP lounge. Once he raises that glass, we settle this. Hale won't make it to morning. Does he know? He knows enough. He found the transfers, maybe the emails. A pause. Then the one with the gravelly voice added, just make sure he drinks. After that, it's a closed chapter. Marissa's stomach dropped. She shouldn't have been there. Shouldn't have stopped. But she did. She backed away quietly, panic rising like heat under her skin. She knew who they were talking about. Everyone knew the name Victor Hale, the billionaire trying to reform medical access. The man hosting this gala tonight. The man about to die if she didn't intervene. So she acted the only way she could think of. She moved fast into the ballroom, forcing her breath to steady. She wove between tables, her tray trembling just slightly. Victor was approaching the stage. A waiter brought him the fatal glass of champagne. She inhaled sharply, and then she stumbled. The tray tilted. A cascade of golden liquid splashed across Victor's sleeve and down the front of his tailored jacket. Gasps scattered around them. "Oh my, I'm so sorry, sir," she whispered, bowing as she reached to dab his sleeve. "Marissa," a voice like a whip cracked across the ballroom. Her manager, Mr. Durant, stormed toward them, face red, eyes bulging. "You clumsy, useless girl," he barked. "You've embarrassed this hotel in front of the richest donor we have." Marissa kept her head low. Her heart hammered so violently she felt dizzy. She wasn't even thinking anymore. Her mind was on the folded note in her palm, ready to pass. She needed a second. Just one. Durant grabbed her arm and yanked. "You're done. Get out. Right now before you ruin anything else." She winced but didn't resist. Instead, she seized the only moment she had left. As Durant dragged her backwards, she lurched forward just enough to brush Victor's hand soft, quick, invisible beneath the commotion, and pressed the note into his palm. Then she let herself be pulled away. "That's it," Durant hissed. "You're suspended. I should have known better than to—" But Marissa wasn't listening. Her eyes flicked toward Victor. Just once, just long enough to see him unfold the note. Just long enough to know he had read it. Now, back in the present, Victor looked up from the words that could have saved his life. He saw her being pulled through a side corridor by her manager, her shoulders tense, her chin tucked down. Her tray clattered as Durant shoved it into her hands. Victor set his champagne flute on a nearby table without touching it again. He moved. Not rushed, never rushed, but precise, weaving through guests with the same sharp focus he once used in boardrooms. He reached the rear hallway moments after Durant disappeared around the corner. The air was cooler here, quieter, more honest. He found her alone, leaning against a wall, catching her breath. "Don't turn around," he said softly. She startled at the sound of his voice behind her. "I read your note," he continued. Marissa swallowed. "I needed you to see it." "I did." His tone was calm, almost too calm. "And now you need to come with me." She turned then, slowly. I can't leave yet," she whispered. "My brother's waiting for me. He doesn't do well alone. He's in the staff room down the hall." Victor paused. "Your brother?" "He's 10, she said, steadying her breath. Jaden, he has autism. I work nights because I don't have anyone else to watch him. Victor's expression shifted, less guarded, more human. Then we get him first. She blinked, surprised at how simply he said it. How easily he accepted her reality without judgment. They walked together down the staff hallway. The throb of music faded behind them. The air smelled of old carpet and lemon disinfectant. At the end of the hall, on a small bench outside the employee lounge, sat a boy with headphones on, legs swinging, eyes fixed on an old tablet playing cartoons. "Jay," Marissa whispered. He looked up, and his whole face lit up. She knelt, smoothing his hair. "Grab your jacket, baby. We're leaving." "Whoa." Victor stepped forward and, without ceremony, shrugged off his tailored suit jacket and wrapped it gently around the boy's shoulders. "It's cold outside," he said. Jaden stared at him, then smiled, a soft, shy smile that dissolved something in Marissa's chest. She stood and faced Victor. "What happens now?" she asked. Victor glanced toward the doors leading out of the ballroom, the glitter and danger behind them. "Now," he said, voice low and steady, "we disappear long enough to stay alive and come back with the truth no one expects." He held the door open. Marissa took Jaden's hand. The three of them stepped into the darkened stairwell, leaving behind the lights, the music, and the people already wondering why Victor Hale hadn't returned for his toast. They would soon learn why. If you felt for these characters, tap like and drop your city in the comments, so we can see where in the world you're watching from. The stairwell smelled like concrete and old dust, a forgotten artery beneath the grandeur of the hotel. Marissa's shoes clicked softly on each step as she held Jaden's hand, his other wrapped tightly in the oversized sleeve of Victor Hale's tailored jacket. The boy's eyes darted around but said nothing, his silence not from fear, but habit. Victor moved ahead of them, calm, eyes sharp, calculating. Every door they passed was a potential threat. Every creak of the walls a signal to move faster. When they reached the sub-level parking garage, the chill hit them like a curtain of damp air. A janitor's radio crackled faintly in the distance, a jazz station bleeding into static. Victor turned to her. "Where's your car?" "I don't have one," Marissa said quickly. "I take the train. We usually walk 2 blocks to Midtown Station." Victor nodded once. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small remote key fob, and pressed it. A sleek black Lincoln Navigator blinked twice across the garage. "Get in," he said, not as an order, but an assurance. Jaden hesitated. Marissa knelt beside him. "Jay, it's okay. We're just going for a ride, all right? Somewhere safe. Like our game, you remember the escape game?" He gave a small nod, eyes focused on her mouth. Victor opened the rear passenger door and helped Jaden in first, then Marissa. He circled to the driver's side, slid in, and started the engine with a low purr. The car rolled silently out of the garage and onto the quiet city street, far from the glittering windows of the Langston Regency Hotel. They drove in silence for nearly 5 minutes. Victor finally spoke. "Tell me exactly what you heard." "Oh." Marissa looked over her shoulder to check on Jaden. His head leaned against the window, watching the blur of neon and shadow. She took a breath. "I was coming out of the kitchen," she began. "They were in the hallway outside the VIP lounge. I think they didn't know I was there. The door was cracked open." Victor didn't interrupt. "There were 2 voices, maybe 3. They were talking about you, about how you'd found something. One of them said you knew too much. The other said, 'After the toast, it's done.'" Victor's jaw shifted slightly. "I think they meant the champagne. That it was laced." I panicked. I didn't know what else to do. He glanced at her, briefly. "You did exactly what you needed to do." Marissa looked out the window. "I didn't know if you'd believe me." "I didn't," he said honestly. "Not at first. But then I saw the way Durant pulled you out. The way no one reacted to the spilled drink. Too quiet. Too coordinated." Marissa exhaled slowly. "I wasn't trying to be a hero," she said. I saw something wrong. I couldn't pretend I didn't." Victor nodded. "Pretending not to see things is how these people survive. It's how they stay rich." Jaden stirred in the back seat, mumbling softly. Marissa turned and stroked his arm gently. "It's okay, baby. Just rest." Victor made a sharp left turn and slowed in front of a brown brick building tucked between two glass towers. No signage, no security guards, just a discreet camera above a reinforced side door. "What is this place?" she asked. "My old apartment," Victor said. "Before the board wanted me to look the part. Nobody knows I still keep it. You'll be safe here." They rode the elevator to the third floor. The hallway smelled faintly of lemon polish and carpet cleaner. Victor unlocked the door, and they stepped into a modest but warm apartment. Worn leather couch, hardwood floors, framed photographs, not art, but real moments. A boy fishing, an old woman smiling on a porch. "Marisa Pauste. This doesn't look like where a billionaire lives." "It's where I lived before I became one," he said. "Sometimes it's the only place that makes sense." She nodded slowly and guided Jaden to the couch, helping him settle in with a blanket from the armrest. He immediately curled into it like muscle memory, safe in the quiet. Victor walked to a wooden cabinet, opened it, and withdrew a locked metal box. He set it on the table and keyed in a short code. The lid clicked open. Inside were folders, neatly labeled in black ink. Vendor expenses, charity funds, Q3, wire transfers. Alongside them was a flash drive and a leather-bound notebook. Marissa moved closer. "What's all that?" "The reason they want me gone." He flipped open the top folder. Dozens of statements, audits, and email printouts lay inside. "For the last 6 months," Victor said, "I've been looking into one of our largest outreach programs, Hale Children's Access Fund. It's supposed to provide mobile clinics to underserved communities." He pulled out a sheet and slid it toward her, but almost none of the money made it there. Fake vendors, ghost invoices, shell companies, over $6 million missing. Marissa covered her mouth. "You found this?" "I verified what I could. I hired an external firm to double-check, but I waited too long to go public. I thought I needed everything airtight." She whispered, "And now they want to silence you before you do." Victor's voice dropped, slow and steady. "They don't just want silence. They want erasure. They want me dead so they can call it a tragedy and move on." Marissa gripped the edge of the table. "You can't go back there. Not yet." "I won't," he said. "But I'm not disappearing either." He looked at her. Really looked. "You're the only reason I'm alive right now. That note saved me." She swallowed, not knowing what to say. No one had ever said something like that to her. "I can't let them keep doing this," he added. "But I can't do it alone." Marissa was quiet. Then she nodded. "Then I'm in." Victor closed the folder. "We'll need help." He picked up his phone and dialed. After 2 rings, a gravelly voice answered. "Dean, it's Hale. I need you. No questions. Come to the old apartment." A pause. Then, "On my way." He hung up and turned to Marissa. "That's Marcus Dean, ex-NYPD, now private investigator. Knows how to stay quiet. He'll help us plan." Jaden stirred again. Marissa knelt beside him, brushing back his hair. Victor watched the two of them for a long moment. "You saved my life," he said softly. "I'll do what I can to protect yours." Marissa looked up, her voice steady now. "Then let's take back the truth before they bury it." Marcus Dean arrived just after midnight, his footsteps barely audible on the hallway carpet. He knocked once short and deliberate. Victor opened the door without a word, and the 2 men exchanged a look that said more than any greeting could. Marcus was broad-shouldered, late 40s, with streaks of gray at his temples and a face carved by years of suspicion. His dark leather jacket creaked slightly as he stepped inside, eyes immediately scanning the apartment's corners, windows, and the figure on the couch. His gaze paused on Marissa, then shifted to Jaden, curled under a throw blanket, his tiny fingers clenching the hem as he slept. Victor nodded toward her. "She's the reason I'm still breathing." Marcus tilted his head, acknowledging her with a subtle nod. "Then I owe you a drink, Miss Clark," Marissa said softly, rising. "Marissa Clark. And no drink needed. Just help us stop them." Marcus cracked a dry half-smile. "You'll fit right in." Victor gestured to the kitchen table, where folders, a laptop, and the flash drive now sat like evidence in a courtroom. Marcus dropped into the chair with a grunt, pulling a notepad from his inner coat pocket. "Give me the full rundown. Don't skip the dirty parts." Victor didn't. Over the next 30 minutes, he laid it out. The inconsistencies in Hale Foundation's third-quarter audit, the fake medical suppliers, the silent board meetings that began ending too quickly, and finally, the anonymous internal memo that arrived on his private email 3 weeks ago. Stop digging, or you'll be buried with it. That's not just a threat, Marcus muttered. That's a deadline. Victor leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. I thought I had time to build the case. I was wrong. Marcus flipped through the audit report Victor had compiled. This is strong. But not enough for court. It's enough to scare them into making a move. Maybe enough to get you killed, but not enough to indict. That's why we need more, Victor said. Marcus tapped his pen against the folder. How many on the board? 8. I trust maybe 2. And the rest? Victor hesitated. One in particular, Preston Ward. Coup. He helped build the foundation. He's charming, brilliant, and a sociopath. If anyone orchestrated this, it's him. Ever confront him? No. I was waiting until I had a full dossier. Enough to go legal without causing panic. Marissa crossed her arms. Maybe that was your mistake. Both men looked at her. She didn't flinch. You waited to be clean. They don't. They moved while you were still organizing. They poisoned your glass while you were planning your PowerPoint. Victor cracked a faint smile. That's fair. Marcus chuckled. Remind me to keep her on payroll. Victor turned serious again. We need a plan. I can't walk into headquarters again. I don't know who's loyal, who's watching. You've got me now, Marcus said. I've got ears in City Hall, old favors to call in. I'll start digging into shell vendors, offshore accounts. He pulled out his phone and made a note. But I'll need someone inside. Someone who can go where I can't. Listen. Blend in. His eyes moved to Marissa. I'm not trained, she said, surprised. You're invisible, Marcus said flatly. And you're smart. You got the message out in a room full of billionaires and cameras. That's more than most undercover agents manage. Victor looked at her. You don't have to do this. I won't ask you. Marissa looked toward Jaden, still sleeping on the couch, then back at them. If I walk away now, I'll always wonder if they'll come after me. Or him. I'm already in. Victor nodded slowly. Then we go step by step. Marcus leaned forward. Tomorrow, there's a board strategy session, quiet one. Off record. It's being held at the Foundation's private conference room on the 42nd floor. I wasn't invited, Victor said. That's the point, Marcus replied. It's not official. They're planning the power shift. He turned to Marissa. You can get in as catering staff. They use an outside company, Langston Catering. I've got a contact there. One call and you're on the rotation. Marissa hesitated. And what do I do when I'm inside? Listen. Watch. Place this. He pulled a small wireless transmitter from his coat. Hide it under the conference table or inside the flower arrangement. It'll transmit everything back to my van. Victor added, if they say anything actionable, anything about the poisoned drink, the missing funds, it's our proof. Marissa took the device and turned it over in her hand. It was smaller than a coin. Cold. Real. They're not stupid, she said. They'll be careful. Marcus grinned. Everyone slips, especially powerful men who think they've already won. She nodded slowly, then softly. I've served people like them for years. I know how they look through me. Like I don't exist. Maybe now, that's finally useful. Victor's jaw tightened with respect. You sure about this? He asked. I've seen the damage they do, she said. This time, I do something back. Marcus clapped once. Then let's get to work. They reviewed logistics until nearly 3 a.m. The plan was simple on paper. Marissa would infiltrate the meeting, plant the transmitter, and retreat without raising suspicion. Marcus would monitor from a van parked 2 blocks away. Victor would remain at the apartment, coordinating, unreachable to the press or staff until they had enough. Before they turned in, Victor brought Marissa a blanket and a fresh set of linens. She took the small guest room down the hall. She stood in the doorway, watching Jaden sleeping in peace for once. Victor spoke from behind her. He's safe here. So are you. She didn't turn. You said earlier I saved your life. I meant it. Well, she whispered. I think tonight, maybe you saved mine too. They stood in silence a moment longer. Then Marissa stepped inside, closed the door gently behind her, and Victor sat alone at the kitchen table, the flickering city light spilling across the folders. His empire was cracked, his trust shattered, but for the first time in days, something steady glowed in his chest. He had an ally, and tomorrow, they'd begin to take back the truth. Marissa woke before dawn, the kind of early hour where the city still whispered instead of roared. The apartment felt different in the morning, quieter, softer, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. She slipped out of the guest room carefully so as not to wake Jaden, who was curled up on the futon, hugging Victor's jacket like a shield. The kitchen lights were off, but Victor was already there, sitting at the small round table with a mug of black coffee. His sleeves were rolled up, and his eyes, sharp the night before, looked tired now, though focus still burned beneath the weariness. You didn't sleep, Marissa said, her voice low. He smiled faintly. I've had worse nights. Nah. She found a clean mug in the cabinet. It's going to be a long day. That's why we start early. She poured coffee and took a slow sip, letting the warmth steady her. Today wasn't like yesterday. Yesterday had been instinct, panic, survival. Today was deliberate. A step into danger with her eyes open. Victor slid a folder toward her. This is the layout of the 42nd floor conference suite. Marcus pulled the blueprints from a city permit archive. The catering entrance is here. Low. He pointed at a narrow corridor behind the main hall. That's where you'll enter. Marissa studied the map. And they won't question me? They won't look at you long enough to question you, Victor said, and that's their mistake. She swallowed the knot in her throat. She didn't like being invisible. But today, invisibility was exactly what she needed. A knock sounded at the door, 3 short taps. Marcus. He entered with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, already chewing on a granola bar. Morning, he said. Hope nobody's too attached to comfort, because today's going to be a circus without popcorn. Victor gestured to the table. Walk her through it. Marcus dropped the duffel onto a chair and unzipped it. Inside were catering clothes, a cap, hair ties, a metal water bottle, and a small black pouch. The transmitter, Marcus said, pulling out the device from the pouch, is already programmed to channel 6. Once it's placed, you don't need to touch it again. You'll hear a tiny click when it activates. That means it's transmitting. Marissa took it gingerly. Where exactly should I put it? Under the conference table if you can, Marcus said. Otherwise, inside the floral centerpiece. But table's better, those mics get clean sound. And if someone sees? Marcus shrugged. Then you improvise. Trip, sneeze, pretend you're wiping a spill, anything. Just don't panic. She let out a shaky breath. Great advice. Victor pushed a sealed envelope across the table. Your ID and catering badge. Marcus got them from a contact. Marissa opened it and found a laminated badge with her picture. Her new name, Marie Collins, and the logo of Langston Catering. Looks real, she whispered. It is, Marcus replied. Technically. Jaden's soft voice broke the tension. Sis. Marissa turned quickly. Her brother stood in the hallway, rubbing his eyes, hair sticking up. He walked toward her in small steps, the blanket still wrapped around him. You hungry, bud? She asked. He nodded. Victor stood. I can make pancakes. Marissa blinked. You cook? He smirked. Don't look so surprised. I wasn't always chauffeured from kitchen to kitchen. While Victor mixed batter and Marcus rechecked their equipment, Marissa sat with Jaden, smoothing his hair. He pressed his forehead against her shoulder, a gesture that meant comfort, familiarity, trust. You'll stay with Mr. Hale today, she said gently. He'll take care of you while I work. Jaden looked at Victor. Okay. Victor paused mid-stir, surprised. It was the first time Jaden had spoken to him directly. Marissa whispered, he doesn't do that often. Victor nodded slowly, humbled. I'll keep him safe. You have my word. Oh. By 8:30, Marissa was dressed in the catering uniform, black slacks, crisp white shirt, black vest, and cap. The disguise made her blend into a version of herself she knew too well, a worker in the background, unnoticed, unremembered. Marcus walked her to the elevator. You nervous? He asked. Yes, she admitted. Good, he said. Means you're focused. He handed her an earpiece the size of a bead. Put this in your right ear. You'll hear me, but you won't need to respond. If something goes wrong, I'll guide you. She placed it carefully. Static buzzed softly, then settled. Testing, Marcus said. I hear you, she whispered. When they reached the lobby, Marcus opened the door to a nondescript white catering van. Into the lion's den, he muttered. They drove in silence through midtown traffic. Jaden watched from the apartment window above, small hands pressed to the glass. Victor stood behind him, one hand resting gently on the boy's shoulder. At the Hale Foundation Tower, Marcus pulled up to the service entrance. Last chance to back out, he said quietly. Marissa shook her head. No more backing out. Not today. She stepped out of the van, took a steadying breath, and walked toward the entrance. Inside, she joined the morning catering crew unloading trays of coffee, carafes, pastries, and fruit platters. Her badge beeped valid at the security checkpoint. No one questioned her. No one even looked twice. Invisible, just as Marcus predicted, she moved with the group to the freight elevator. The metal doors groaned open, and they ascended quickly. 20 floors. 30. 40. When the doors slid open on floor 42, Marissa felt her pulse quicken. The hallway was lined with frosted glass panels. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating marble floors and modern artwork. The conference suite was ahead. Marcus? She whispered inside her mind, though she didn't speak aloud. His voice came through the earpiece, calm and gravelly. You're doing good. Straight ahead. The table's already set. She entered the room. 8 leather chairs circled a long, polished table. A floral arrangement sat in the center, a mix of lilies and eucalyptus. She approached the table, pretending to adjust the pastries. Her hand slipped beneath the table's glossy underside. A small click. The transmitter was live. She forced herself not to sigh in relief. One step back. Footsteps echoed behind her. She turned. Preston Ward. Tall, confident, perfectly pressed suit, expression stiff as granite. His pale blue eyes scanned the table, then flicked toward her, dismissing her instantly, like she was furniture. Incompetent catering last week, he muttered. Let's hope today is better. Yes, sir, Marissa replied, lowering her gaze. He brushed past her, pulling out his chair. A folder thudded onto the table. Marissa swallowed. He was sitting inches from the transmitter. Perfect. Get the coffee ready, he said without looking at her. Yes, sir. She backed away, heart pounding but steady. Marcus whispered into her ear. Beautifully done. Now, get out clean. She made it to the hallway, pulse thrumming. Then she saw him, another board member, staring at her. Eyes narrowed. You, he said, stepping closer. You were at the gala last night. I remember you. Her blood ran cold. Marissa's feet froze in place. The hallway suddenly felt too narrow, the air too thin. The man walking toward her wasn't angry, not yet, but his eyes were sharp with suspicion. He was in his late 50s, face tanned and deeply lined, the kind of man who had always been obeyed without question. His name came to her in a flash of dread. Kenneth Duval, board member, oil money, old power, the type who didn't forget a face. You were at the gala, he said, slower now, pointing slightly as if drawing a memory from a dusty shelf. The waitress who spilled champagne on Hale. Marissa straightened her posture, softened her voice. I work through Langston Catering. They pulled me for today's event too. Duval didn't blink. And Hale's not here. Interesting coincidence. A flicker of something mean curled behind his eyes. Marissa instinctively stepped back, not away. Just sideways. Like someone adjusting for space. Not retreating. Her fingers stayed loose at her sides. I go where I'm scheduled, sir, she said, keeping her voice light. Didn't even know this was for the foundation until I got here. He took one more step closer. Let me see your badge. For a moment, the world held its breath. She unclipped it from her pocket and handed it over, praying that Marcus's fake would hold. Duval squinted at it, lips tightening. His thumb rubbed the photo. The silence stretched. Then another voice broke in, sharp and dismissive. Ken, you still harassing the help? It was a woman, mid-40s, tailored navy blazer, heels like weapons, hair twisted in a perfect updo. Rebecca Lang, head of PR, another board member but one who never liked Duval's patronizing tone. She's catering, Rebecca added, already walking past. Let her do her job. Duval hesitated, reluctant to be shown up, but he handed the badge back with a final glare. You spill anything else, and you're gone. Marissa bowed slightly, just enough. Yes, sir. As soon as he disappeared into the conference room, she exhaled a breath that felt like it had been stuck in her chest for a year. In her earpiece, Marcus's voice was a whisper. Nice recovery. You all right? She turned a corner toward the elevator, hand tightening around the handle of her coffee cart. I'm fine. Stay cool. Get out smooth. She moved down the hallway with slow confidence, as if nothing had happened. Her heart racing so hard it nearly drowned out Marcus's voice. The elevator arrived. She stepped in. The doors closed, and only then did her knees start to shake. Back at the apartment, Victor stood at the window with Jaden, watching a city already brimming with horns and motion. The boy traced the glass with his finger, spelling letters backward, silently writing the word home over and over. Victor didn't interrupt. He respected the quiet. Sometimes, silence was truth in its purest form. Marcus's voice crackled through the apartment speaker system. He'd set up a laptop and receiver in the living room. Transmitter is live. They're all seated. Let's listen. The sound was faint at first, shuffling papers, chairs adjusting. Then Preston Ward's voice filled the room. All right, before we begin, let's address the absence of Mr. Hale. Another voice, older, clipped. Still no word from him? Rebecca Lang again. He's radio silent. No press statements, no appearances. He's either hiding or planning something. Duval spoke next. He's not stupid. That worries me more than if he were. Preston, it doesn't matter. The votes are locked in. The transition papers will be signed today. Another voice chimed in. And the report? Marissa, riding in the catering van now, listened through her earpiece, breath held. Preston, destroyed, or so I've been told. Victor tensed. That's a lie, he muttered. Back through the feed. Duval again. What about Langston's staff? That waitress, what's her name? She got too close. Rebecca, let it go. No one takes catering staff seriously. Preston, if Hale resurfaces, we press the narrative. Exhaustion, burnout, poor leadership, a graceful exit, no scandal. Someone laughed softly. Victor sat down slowly, every muscle tight. They think they've already won. Marcus spoke into the room. We've got enough to start shaking cages. That was obstruction, premeditated cover-up, manipulation of voting shares. I know 2 DA investigators who'd salivate over this. No, Victor said. Marcus looked up. Not yet, Victor said, voice firm. Let them believe they're safe. That's when they'll show everything. He turned to Marissa, who'd just walked in through the door. The catering uniform draped over her arm like a shed skin. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were steady. You heard? She asked. Victor nodded. They're handing me the keys to my own funeral. But now, we hold the match. Marissa collapsed onto the couch beside Jaden, who climbed into her lap and hugged her tight. She wrapped her arms around him. I was terrified, she whispered. When he recognized me, I thought it was over. Victor walked over, knelt beside her. You kept going. She met his gaze. I'm tired of backing down, she said. Every day of my life, I've had to be quiet, polite, invisible. I'm done. Huh. Victor's voice softened. Then we'll make them see you, not as a threat, as the reason they fall. Marcus looked up from his laptop. We have one shot to strike. What's the next move? Victor stood, eyes distant now, calculating again. We get the files. Marissa frowned. What files? The originals, he said. The final audits, board signatures, internal memos, all of it. Where are they? Victor looked at them. My safe, at headquarters, 45th floor, behind a false wall. Makesty. Marcus blinked. You're kidding. Victor smiled faintly. I always thought if someone tried to take me down, I'd need leverage. Marissa sat up straighter. How do we get to it? Victor glanced toward the window. Same way they tried to end me quietly. Marcus leaned back, arms crossed. So, We're breaking in. Victor nodded once. No alarms, no witnesses, no margin for error, and no second chances, Marissa added. Victor looked at her, then at Marcus, then at Jaden, who now lay resting again, small and safe for now. We do this right, he said. We don't just stop them. We bury them with the truth they tried to erase. The night air was sharp with the early bite of autumn. Midtown Manhattan, usually ablaze with lights and noise, seemed quieter tonight. At least in the alley behind the Hale Foundation building. 3 figures stood near a utility access door. Victor Hale, dressed in dark jeans and a hoodie instead of his usual tailored suit. Marissa, bundled in a borrowed windbreaker. And Marcus Dean, checking a small tablet linked to the building's internal systems. This is insane, Marissa whispered. Insane is trying to take down a corrupt board with a tweet, Marcus muttered. This is just well-organized trespassing. Victor glanced at his watch. We have 46 minutes before the overnight maintenance crew does their second sweep. He turned to Marissa. You still good? She nodded, but her fingers trembled slightly. I've never done anything like this before. You already did something braver than this, he replied. You slipped me a note in a ballroom full of killers. Marcus gave a soft grunt of agreement. This is the easy part. Nah. He pulled a device from his coat pocket, a slim, handheld keypad override tool with a single green light blinking softly. Security panel still on analog firmware, he said. Old school. Should take 30 seconds. He crouched beside the utility door, pried open the access panel, and started tapping into the wires. The lock clicked free after 27 seconds. Marissa blinked. You've done this before. Marcus winked. Don't ask. Don't tell. No. Victor opened the door and held it for them. Inside, the hallway was dimly lit, lined with cleaning carts, storage closets, and the low hum of HVAC systems. This way, Victor said. We take the service elevator to the 43rd floor and go the rest of the way by stairs. They moved quickly but carefully. Marissa kept her steps light, her breath controlled. Marcus swept every corridor with a tactical eye, always listening, always watching for something out of place. The elevator ride was silent. As the car ascended, Victor turned to them. The files we're going after are the originals, contracts, ledger summaries, emails, donor records, whistleblower letters, things we never logged into the digital system. Marissa frowned. Why not? Victor looked her dead in the eye. Because I never fully trusted the people around me. I built a paper trail that no one could delete. The elevator stopped at 43. They exited quickly and ducked into the stairwell, climbing 2 more flights. The 45th floor was empty at this hour, executive suites, boardrooms, and Victor's former office, untouched since his sabbatical. A motion detector in the hallway glowed red. Marcus reached into his bag, pulled out a signal jammer no larger than a pack of gum, and clipped it to a fire alarm box. The light blinked once, then went dark. No signal, no cameras. We're ghosts, he said. Victor led them to the corner office. He used a passcode on the door, still active, though that wouldn't last long. The office opened in darkness. Marissa stepped inside behind him and stopped. It was nothing like she'd imagined. The office wasn't cold or ostentatious. It was warm bookshelves lined with medical journals and photographs. A picture of Victor and a much younger version of himself, wearing a cheap suit and holding a ribbon-cutting scissors. A ceramic mug reading, "Dream Bigger." No, I used to sleep on that couch after 16-hour shifts, Victor said quietly. She looked at him. You didn't just build this, she said. You bled for it. Victor nodded once, then walked to a bookcase in the corner. He pulled out a worn hardcover edition of To Kill a Mockingbird, turned it on its spine, and pressed the back cover. There was a soft mechanical click. The entire case swung forward slightly. Behind it was a small concrete wall with a built-in vault. Still think this is just well-organized trespassing? Victor asked. Marcus stepped forward. If this were a Bond film, I'd be impressed. Victor knelt and entered a 10-digit code on the keypad, then used a small key from his necklace. With a hiss of pressurized air, the vault opened. Stacks of folders, 2 flash drives, a hardbound ledger, and at the very top a sealed envelope marked, "In case of death." Marissa felt a chill down her spine. Victor reached inside and pulled out the files. These contain the details of every transfer routed through our outreach programs in the last 2 fiscal years. The shell companies, the names on the forged signatures, and the money trail that leads straight to Preston Ward. Marcus took the files and scanned a few pages. "This is gold," he muttered. "This buries them." Suddenly, a voice echoed down the hallway. "Who the hell is in there?" They froze. Footsteps fast, coming closer. Victor shut the vault with a soft click. Marcus grabbed the files. Marissa killed the office lights. "Janitor?" she whispered. Marcus shook his head. "Too fast. Too angry. Security." Victor moved to the door, peeked through the crack. "Guard with a flashlight," he said. "One guy. Armed." Marissa swallowed hard. "Options?" Marcus pulled a small object from his pocket, a smoke pellet. "Create distraction. Get to the stairwell. We take the freight elevator to sub-level parking." Victor hesitated. "Do it." Marcus rolled the pellet into the hallway. It popped and hissed, releasing a cloud of thick, gray smoke. The guard shouted in confusion. "Move," Marcus barked. They burst from the office, hugging the wall. Marissa covered her mouth with her sleeve. Victor guided her with a hand on her back. They reached the stairwell just as the guard reached the cloud, coughing and yelling into his radio. But they were already gone. Down 5 flights, into the freight elevator, out through the basement corridor. By the time security responded to the false alarm, the 3 of them were already blocks away in Marcus's van, the files safe in a locked case under the seat. Marissa sat in the back, lungs still burning slightly from the smoke. She looked over at Victor. "You kept all of that in your office vault?" Victor nodded. "I always said, if I went down, I was taking the rot with me." Marcus drove through the empty streets, grinning like a thief who just got away clean. "That, my friends," he said, "was beautiful." Victor turned to Marissa. "Now we have the truth. Next, we show the world." The first droplets of morning rain tapped gently against the apartment windows. Marissa sat at the kitchen table, her fingers wrapped tightly around a warm mug of tea. But she wasn't drinking. Across from her, Victor and Marcus hovered over the open file folders like battlefield generals surveying an old war map. The documents were real, raw, unfiltered. One record showed a $1.2 million wire transfer to a non-existent mobile health unit in Newark. Another showed duplicate invoices signed with forged initials. And one chilling letter dated only 3 weeks ago had Marissa's name typed in a warning list of security liabilities under surveillance. "They were watching me," she whispered, stunned. Victor nodded. "They have people watching everyone. If they thought you were a risk, they'd have found a way to eliminate you quietly. You stopped that clock at the gala." She looked up at him. "But now the clock's ticking again, isn't it?" Marcus answered instead. "Yep. Louder than ever. They'll know that safe was opened within the hour. Your code, your key, both were logged. That guard last night? He'll report a break-in. They'll connect it to you." Victor leaned back, rubbing his temple. "Then we move first." Marissa glanced toward the living room, where Jaden was sitting on the floor with his tablet, tracing puzzles silently. He hadn't spoken much since yesterday, but he hadn't panicked either. He was watching, waiting like the rest of them. "We can't just throw this on the internet," she said, turning back. "They'll spin it, say it's fake, edited, stolen." Victor agreed. "That's why it needs credibility. We need someone who's not part of the foundation, but respected. Someone who'll verify everything." Marcus's eyes flicked toward Victor. "You thinking who I'm thinking?" Victor gave a grim smile. "Renee Holloway." Marissa looked between them. "Who's that?" "She's a former federal prosecutor turned investigative journalist," Victor explained. "Now runs an independent truth-based outlet called The Beacon. She's obsessed with public corruption and medical fraud. Exposed 2 senators last year. She's cautious, but relentless. And she used to date him," Marcus added, deadpan. Victor rolled his eyes. 10 years ago." Marissa raised an eyebrow. "Does she hate you?" "She doesn't like me," he admitted. "But she respects the work. And that's all we need." An hour later, they were in a quiet coffee house in Chelsea. Victor wore a baseball cap low over his eyes. Marissa kept her hoodie pulled up. Marcus stayed in the car to monitor the perimeter. Renee Holloway arrived at 9:15 a.m. Sharp. She didn't do dramatic entrances, just slipped into the booth across from them like someone who had been there all along. Her gray suit was simple, her dark curls tied back, and her eyes sharp behind wire-framed glasses, wasted no time on pleasantries. "Victor Hale," she said, folding her hands. "I thought you were in hiding." "I was," he replied. "Now I'm hunting." She turned her gaze to Marissa. "And you are?" "I'm the one who ruined their assassination attempt," Marissa said calmly. That earned a pause. "Go on," Renee said. Victor slid the first folder across the table. "This is just a taste." Renee opened it, flipped through the pages quickly, her eyes darting, pausing, scanning again. "Preston Ward," she muttered. "I always knew he was a snake, but this is bold." "You're sitting on a bomb, Victor. We want you to light the fuse," he said. Renee closed the folder slowly. "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing," Marissa said before Victor could speak. "Just the truth. The public needs to see it all." Renee studied her carefully. "You're not his lawyer. You're not family. Why are you here?" Marissa held her gaze. "Because I've served people like Ward and Duval my whole life. They don't see me. They think silence means obedience. I'm here to prove them wrong." Renee tapped the folder once, then looked back at Victor. "I'll need 48 hours. I need to verify signatures, check against IRS records, call in a few quiet favors." "Fair," Victor said. "And I'll need your protection if they push back," she added. "You'll have it," he promised. She tucked the folder into her bag, stood, and buttoned her jacket. "I'm not doing this for you," she said to Victor. "I'm doing this because this country's been swallowed by shadows. If we can drag one monster out into the light, maybe someone else will be brave enough to follow." "No." Marissa felt a chill, but nodded with respect. "We'll be ready." As Renee left the cafe, Victor leaned back and let out a long breath. "That's the hardest part done." Marissa smiled faintly. "I think the hardest part's still coming." That night, back at the apartment, the mood was tense. No one said much. Even Jaden picked up on it, his puzzles untouched, his eyes flicking between Marissa and Victor, sensing their unease. Victor finally broke the silence. "We should move him, tonight. Somewhere safer." Marissa looked up sharply. "Where?" "There's a safe house in Connecticut. One of the few places I bought under a shell name years ago. Quiet. Gated. No one knows about it." Marissa hesitated. "You trust it?" "I trust it more than the city." Marcus entered from the balcony. "We just got movement." "What kind?" Victor asked. Marcus held up his phone showing security footage he hacked from the Foundation's building. Preston Ward walking into Victor's former office. Duval behind him, both of them staring at the vault. "They know," Marcus said. Victor stood. "Then we push forward." Marissa rose too. "And if they come after us?" Victor looked at her, and for the first time, his voice held no uncertainty. "Then we make sure they regret it." The rain had turned heavier by the time they reached the Connecticut state line. Victor's SUV cut through the fog-drenched roads like a whisper in the night. Headlights low. Every motion deliberate. Marissa sat in the back seat, arms wrapped tightly around Jaden, who had fallen asleep with his head in her lap. He never did well with long drives, but at least now he was resting, safe for the moment. Victor drove in silence, his jaw tight, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few minutes. Marcus followed behind them in a black sedan, maintaining just enough distance to blend with traffic, but close enough to step in if anything went wrong. The safe house wasn't extravagant. In fact, it looked almost forgotten, a two-story colonial tucked behind a thicket of pines and birch trees, no mailbox, no address on the curb. Just a gravel drive and a rusted gate that groaned like an old dog when Victor unlocked it. "This is it," he said as he parked. Marissa stepped out first, gently lifting Jaden in her arms. The boy stirred but didn't wake. She looked up at the house, faded shutters, cracked walkway, porch light flickering like a stubborn flame. "You sure no one knows about this place?" she asked. "Only one person ever did," Victor replied. "My mother. She died before I ever told anyone else." That quieted her. She didn't ask more. Inside, the house was clean but worn, like it had once been loved and then left behind. Thick carpets, a brick fireplace, heavy curtains drawn tight. Victor moved with muscle memory, flipping switches, opening cabinets, checking locks. Marcus entered moments later, tossing a duffel bag onto the kitchen counter. Landlines are dead. Cell service is weak. Wi-Fi's private and encrypted, but I'd keep usage light. Victor nodded. This isn't a home. It's a foxhole. Marissa laid Jaden on the couch and covered him with a knitted blanket she found in a cedar chest. Then she stepped into the kitchen where the two men were unpacking the files and prepping their next move. "Renee checks in tomorrow?" she asked. Marcus glanced at his burner phone. No messages yet, but that means she's still working. No news is good news for now. Victor poured hot water into 3 chipped mugs and dropped tea bags inside. "When this is over," he said, "I'm going to burn this house down, along with everything it represents." Marissa looked at him. "And what does it represent?" He stared into the steam of his tea. "The life I built trying to prove I was better than the men who tried to own me." The room fell quiet. Jaden stirred in the living room, murmuring softly in his sleep. Marissa stepped back to sit with him, brushing his hair from his forehead, whispering softly until he settled again. Marcus leaned against the counter. "So what happens if Renee publishes the story and it all goes public?" Victor didn't blink. "They'll deny, discredit her, say it's politically motivated, claim I faked it. And if we release the audio from the boardroom, they'll say it was illegally recorded, which technically it was." Marissa returned, folding her arms. "So we need something else." Victor nodded. "Something visual, undeniable." Marcus snapped his fingers. "The off-site warehouse." Marissa raised an eyebrow. "Warehouse?" Victor looked at her. "Some of the fraudulent shipments, medical equipment that never made it to the clinics, they were delivered, just never opened. Stored in a facility we were told was overflow inventory. And let me guess," she said. "Ward owns the facility under a shell corporation." Victor gave a faint smile. "Now you're thinking like them." Marcus pulled out a tablet and began searching. "Give me 5 minutes and an old file name." Victor provided it. Marcus traced it through 3 fake companies, finally landing on a warehouse just outside Stamford, registered under a company called Shieldstone Holdings, the same name that appeared on at least 7 suspicious invoices. He looked up. "There's our smoking gun." Marissa stood. "Then we go get it." "No," Victor said, standing too. "I'll go. You stay here with Jaden." "I'm not leaving you alone again," she said. "Not after what almost happened at the gala." He hesitated. "I don't want to put you in more danger." "You already did," she said, "but now I'm choosing it." Victor looked at her for a long moment, then gave a slight nod. "All right," Marcus smirked. "You two are starting to sound like a team." They left Jaden sleeping with the doors locked and a loaded emergency phone beside the couch. The warehouse was 40 minutes away remote, nestled in an industrial park beside a concrete batching plant and an abandoned train station. By the time they arrived, it was after midnight. A security fence surrounded the building, but there were no lights inside, no guards, no signs of life. Marcus cut the lock in seconds. They pushed the gate open and entered the loading bay, flashlights flicking on. The warehouse smelled like dust and decay, but the boxes were there, stacks upon stacks of unmarked crates. Victor pried open the first one. Inside, oxygen tanks, still in shrink wrap. Another held surgical gloves and gauze packs, some already expired. Another, diagnostic scanners still sealed in factory boxes. "Millions in equipment," Marissa said softly, "all left to rot." Victor exhaled slowly. "Now we show the world." Marcus walked the perimeter, looking for security cameras. "There's one dead feed in the corner. I'll pull footage in case it caught the deliveries." Victor looked at Marissa. "We'll film this ourselves. You still have your phone?" She pulled it out. "Always." They took videos, slow pans of the crates, boxes stamped with delivery dates, invoices stuck to the sides. Marissa narrated each shot. "This is where the money went. Not to hospitals. Not to people who needed it. To silence. To greed. To nothing." Victor closed the last box, his face pale. "We need to get this to Renee now." But just as they turned to leave, Marcus's voice cut through the silence. "Guys, someone else is here." They froze. Outside, headlights flared at the edge of the lot. A black SUV. Doors opened. Figures stepped out. Victor whispered, "Move. Now." They slipped toward the back exit, ducking behind crates, hearts hammering. "Marcus, how many?" Marissa asked. He looked again. 3, maybe 4. They're not security. Then who are they? Victor answered without hesitation. Ward's people. The warehouse, already cloaked in darkness and decay, now pulsed with a new danger: human presence. Not casual visitors, not late-night workers. These were professionals. Shadow-slick men moving with precision and silence, the kind of silence that always came before violence. Victor didn't need confirmation. He knew these men, or at least, he knew their kind. 3 confirmed, Marcus whispered. Possibly 4. Tactical vests. Concealed weapons. Not amateurs. Marissa crouched behind a stack of expired gauze boxes, trying to control her breath. Her hands clutched her phone, still recording, though now the only image was blackness and the sound of footsteps outside. What do they want? She whispered. They want to clean up, Victor said grimly. That includes us. Dugrings. From their position near the back exit, they could just make out the slow approach of boots crunching on gravel, the rattle of the fence being pushed shut. A lock clicked. We're sealed in, Marcus confirmed. Padlock on the main gate. Victor scanned their surroundings, thinking. There's a loading ramp on the east side. If we move now, we can beat them to it. Too risky, Marcus said. They're spreading out, probably sweeping the perimeter first. Victor turned to Marissa. Give me your phone. She handed it over without question. He uploaded the warehouse footage to a secure cloud server he'd preset weeks ago just in case things went sideways. If they get this phone, they won't get the evidence, he said. Footage is safe. Marcus held up a small device. Still got our backup mic from the boardroom too. That's synced to a separate drive. Marissa glanced toward the shadowed edge of the warehouse. What if they find us before we move? Victor's tone was calm, but final. Then we fight, Marcus muttered under his breath. This is why I told you to carry something heavier than a screwdriver. Victor ignored him. Split up. We draw them away from Marissa. She makes it to the exit. Marcus, loop around to the far side. Create noise. I'll move up the center. No, Marissa said firmly. We stay together. Victor stared at her. Marisa, Jaden's at that safe house because I chose to be here. Don't split us now. Victor paused. He saw something in her eyes steel. Not fearlessness, but the decision to act anyway. He nodded. All right. But move when I say move. They crept along the back wall, staying low. Outside, muffled voices called out to each other, coordinating in clipped phrases. North clear. Bay door secure. Copy looping west. Marcus peeked around a stack of crates and smiled faintly. One of them separated. Rear corner. Could use a distraction. Victor handed him a bolt. Make it loud. Marcus threw it hard across the warehouse. The bolt clanged against a metal shelf, echoing like a dropped pipe. A flashlight beam whipped in that direction. Movement, someone yelled. Check that corner. 3 men converged on the sound. Victor turned. Now. They bolted Marissa in the middle, Victor leading, Marcus covering the rear. They reached the east ramp, slipped through a side door, and burst into the open air. But not fast enough. Hey, a voice shouted. Gun drawn. A single figure stood by the gate, just beyond the parking lot. Stop right there. Marissa froze, but Victor didn't. He grabbed her hand and ran, pulling her down the embankment that led to the woods behind the property. Marcus was right behind them. 2 shots rang out loud, sharp, missing by inches. They plunged into the tree line, branches whipping their faces, mud sucking at their shoes. The woods weren't dense, but enough to hide them for now. Victor kept running until his lungs burned. When they finally stopped near a fallen log, they crouched behind it, breathless. Marcus checked the rear. No movement. We lost them for now. Marissa leaned against the tree, chest heaving. We can't go back to the car. They'll have eyes on the lot, Victor agreed. We'll need another exit. Marcus pulled out his phone, opened a GPS app. There's an old service road a quarter-mile east, leads to Route 53. I can call an extraction. Victor nodded. Do it. We're not sleeping tonight. Marissa was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, why now? Why tonight? Victor wiped sweat from his brow. Because they knew we were getting close. Ward doesn't take chances. He burns the evidence before it breathes. And people, Marcus added. He burns people too. They stayed low, moving east through the woods, until the trees thinned and a gravel road appeared. Marcus sent a silent ping to a driver he trusted, someone who owed him more than a favor. As they waited, Victor looked up at the stars, barely visible through the clouds. "They almost had us," he said quietly. Marissa didn't look away from the road. "But now we have them." Victor turned to her, surprised. "Everything we filmed," she said. "Every word they screamed when chasing us. Every bullet. That's part of the story now." Marcus smirked. "If we live long enough to tell it." Lights approached from the south. A black sedan, tinted windows. "Rides here," Marcus confirmed. They climbed in, the driver nodding once. No names, no questions. Just a smooth turn and acceleration into the night. As the trees blurred past them, Victor leaned toward Marissa. "They're going to come harder now. Faster, dirtier." She nodded. "Let them." "Ugh." He studied her face in the dim light, smudged, scraped, eyes sharp. "You're not afraid of them anymore, are you?" "I am," she said. "But I'm more afraid of doing nothing." Victor let those words settle between them. Then he whispered, "Good, because the next move ends it." By the time they returned to the Connecticut safe house, dawn was just starting to lighten the sky. Victor had expected the boy to still be asleep, curled under the knit blanket, safe in the quiet. But when he opened the front door, Jaden was already up, sitting cross-legged on the floor, tablet in hand, headphones on, his eyes wide and alert. He looked up the moment Marissa stepped in, dropped the tablet, and ran to her. She dropped to her knees to catch him. "Hey, baby, I'm okay, she whispered, holding him tight. Victor stepped inside behind them, rubbing the back of his neck. The safe house smelled of old cedar and dust, familiar but hollow, too much like the past he'd tried to bury. Jaden pulled back, his small fingers gripping her sleeves. "You came back," he said softly. It was the first full sentence he'd spoken in days. Marissa's throat tightened. "Always, baby, always." Marcus moved into the living room, setting the bag of documents and footage on the table like it was a box of dynamite. "We have enough to detonate them in 10 directions. But if we wait too long, they'll spin it first. We need to drop this today." "Lou?" Victor nodded. "What's the status on Renee?" "Just came through," Marcus said, holding up his burner phone. "She's in. Beacon will go live at noon. We're doing a multi-platform release, PDF scans of the files, video walkthrough of the warehouse, and audio from the board meeting. She's building a timeline that can't be disputed." "And the Foundation's response?" Marcus shrugged. "So far? Radio silence. They're regrouping,